I see the agency model working really well in a truly digital world, but online sale, how much is involved online and offline? And a true omni transaction is both online and offline, with both physical interaction as well as online. I see the agency model really pointing towards a full online process where prices can be set and delivered, and simply the dealer is provided a handling fee for handing over the vehicle. To my mind and the customer feedback we have been getting, that isn't necessarily what the consumer wants by way of the customer journey. I'm not saying that there aren't customers that will want that journey, and that probably is increasing, but still the vast majority want a combination of both worlds. And while that combination is there, I don't see necessarily that an agency model is the perfect fit, nor necessarily is the franchise model.
Welcome to this latest edition of the AM News Show podcast. Joining us in this episode is Peter Allibon, Sales Director of Mazda UK. So I guess, first of all, I'd like to sort of explore what the start to this year's been like. Last year, we were told that, the supply constraints were going to ease going into 2022. It's never materialised. Ukraine's happened. There's all sorts of headwinds, but people still talking about record profitability. In terms of Mazda and your supply chains, how's the year panning out so far?
I think it's challenged. I think globally there are so many unknown things coming and hitting us. It's really difficult to plan. Ukraine being an example of that. For us in Mazda, we're unaffected by Ukraine from a supply perspective, but we are impacted by the outbreak of COVID in China, which is having quite a substantial impact on component production and supply in the short term. So what's round the corner, we really don't know. All we can do is plan for what will be a growth this year against last year, certainly. We just got to hope that the known issues that we think we can resolve get resolved, and there aren't any more unknown issues that come to compromise what our well thought out plans are. So for the year, I'd like to think that for on the calendar year basis, that we'll be more than 25% up versus last year. I know the industry's forecasting around about a 10% increase, but a lot of that comes in the second half of the calendar year, which is further down the line and is more exposed to being hit by those unknown factors that are yet to be realised. So I think the market is there. We've also got to be very cautious about what the market demand will be. We're all being hit with the cost of energy, fuel, general inflation. Car prices are going up, interest rates are going up. So there will be a reduced market, certainly, than what has been in the past. And we just need to balance that production, and when it does come back, with what the true market demand is, given all the factors that we've got to try to recognise and plan for.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the conversations we've had at AM, particularly regarding consumer demand, and this is, as you say, in a backdrop of inflation going up beyond 7%, which is frankly terrifying for a man from Yorkshire. Against that backdrop, we're seeing order banks very full, and in a lot of cases right through to beyond the end of this year. Is that the case at Mazda, first of all? And, to what extent is that an advantage where consumers may be having second thoughts about the purchase?
Yeah, I think our supply issues haven't been quite as exaggerated as some other manufacturers, and therefore we have been able to keep up with supply to a degree. I think where we've felt the pinch point is during the peak months, that the production has just not been able to keep up with the UK peak demands, and therefore we found ourselves with a bit of a shortfall in those months. But generally, other months of the year, we're able to supply at the normal sort of volumes, which is good news. We are generating forward orders, unprecedented forward orders, but we probably aren't going beyond September with that. We'd hope that we can fulfill orders today through to September. We're also hopeful that the industry doesn't necessarily revert back to old. I think from a planning base, short-term forecasting, it's quite a nice place to be walking into a month having the month already covered. From a customer's perspective, I think it's just a change in mindset for customers. When I look at some of my colleagues in continental Europe, Germany particularly, they've always worked on 3 and 4 month forward order banks. And I think just us as a industry and a market, we've just been used to, need a car today, order a car, get it next week. It's just a change in that dynamic. And I think it could be, once the mindset shifts, I think it's probably a more healthy way to operate. And it certainly won't mean necessarily the wrong types of behaviours being done at month ends, quarter ends, just to try to deliver on certain numbers. It's better to have planned them and to have delivered them well in advance.
I think it's right to acknowledge the change in consumer behaviour and consumers' attitude to the way they buy a car. How's that affected margins and profitability? I've spoken to other manufacturers who are seeing record profitability in their networks. Mm-hmm. Is that case at Mazda as well? Discounts being cut out and cars being sold at almost a fixed price model by default?
Certainly, if somebody wants a car in the short term and there's one available, then they're willing to pay more for that than they would have been previously. It was almost the reverse. Previously, if there was a car available today, then you'd look to get a discount on that car. Whereas if you're ordering one for the future, you're going to pay full up money. We've always had pretty healthy margins for dealers on new cars. They have gone up. The dealer 2021 profit was a record year. And again, bizarrely, but it was delivered through used car performance, through government support mechanisms that really did prop up the overall network profitability. New car department profit was good, but not to the levels of 2018 and prior years. Hope to get those back up. It certainly was helped with increased margins, but we didn't see a huge increase in margins. We typically, our network are retaining strong margins in the past, just through the way that we take our cars to market. We don't look to flood the market with the way we advertise, and the way we set our dealer targets are based around what we think is a true demand rather than our share aspirations. So I think that's been helpful in the past. We've got strong residual values, and therefore dealers have always been able to retain reasonable margins, but they have gone up, certainly over the last 12 months when new car supply has been constrained.
I think we've spoken to, we speak to every manufacturer we ever talk to now about sort of agency and the potential of that. And I know Jeremy Thompson has previously said that Mazda are not pursuing that line of action. Is there an appeal in that, given that fixed pricing is becoming such it seems like a logical step on that omni-channel journey? Do you ever see that happening with Mazda, or?
I'd never say never. I think I see the agency model working really well in a truly digital world, but online sale, how much is involved online and offline, and a true omni transaction is both online and offline, with both physical interaction as well as online. I see the agency model really pointing towards a full online process where prices can be set and delivered, and simply the dealer is provided a handling fee for handing over the vehicle. To my mind, and the customer feedback we have been getting, that isn't necessarily what the consumer wants by way of the customer journey. I'm not saying that there aren't customers that will want that journey, and that probably is increasing, but still the vast majority want a combination of both worlds. And while that combination is there, I don't see necessarily that an agency model is the perfect fit, nor necessarily is the franchise model. For us as a brand, there's a few important factors for why we wouldn't go to an agency model. We want to recognise revenue. We want to invoice dealers' cars. We don't shy away from that. We're a relatively small yet global brand. but we need to recognise revenues early, get that money reinvested in future products so that we can compete with some of the big giant manufacturers out there. So that's really important to us. We've just moved to a Bristol port, and part of the reason to moving to a direct from Japan to the UK supply is so that we can recognise that invoiced cars early. So that's kind of an indication, among other things, that we moved there. But that was one of the key components to our proposal, was to be able to do that. Moving to an agency model kind of undoes one of the biggest reasons why we have paid additional cost to bring cars directly to the UK.
Has that? I wanted to ask you about that and sort of how long that move had been in the offing, because now, of course, with various post-Brexit issues at ports and coronavirus and supply issues, that looks like a bit of a masterstroke. I know it doesn't affect the manufacturing process per se, but bringing them directly has its advantages, you say. But how long has that been on the cards? And at the time that idea was thought, was it was the invoicing, was it, that made the difference?
There's a few things that from my perspective, I've been doing this job quite a long time, and ever since I've been doing the job, we've been taking cars into continental Europe. The process worked fine. There were some inconsistencies with vehicle deliveries. The logistics process is more complex when you've got cars in Zeebrugge having to go to various ports and then going on to transporters and then on to dealers. So there's lots of things that can get in the way to interrupt a consistent delivery process to our network and to our customers. So we're working through that, and often had looked or studied about bringing or having a direct to UK supply and a compound in the UK. The business cases didn't quite stack up because there is a substantial cost to do that. I think when Brexit was upon us, we then started to really look at that more in detail. And then until such time as Brexit actually happened and we were working in a regime where, add to the complexities I've already spelt out, the customs processes and further potential delays that may come upon us, as well as other Brexit issues that jeopardise your transportation from mainland to the UK, with tunnels and all sorts of logistics pile-ups that could potentially affect our ability to serve our dealers and our customers. Then the business case started to really stack up. And I think for me, having what we would consider our journey to premium brand, we needed to have a premium supply chain and a route to our dealers and customers. And the situation we were working with out of Zeebrugge, as good as an operation that was, there were too many potential risks to delivering a premium service. So fundamentally, that is what we wanted to ensure, that we were positioned to be able to do that, not just now, but over the course of a number of years in the future, when we do want to be delivering premium services to dealers and to customers.
Absolutely. And, I guess, Mazda's always been open to innovate and think slightly differently in the UK. I know other brands bring cars directly, of course. It's not so much an innovation. But, I was thinking particularly of the evolution of that omni-channel journey that you talked about. And My Way has been part of the Mazda process for some time, bringing cars to people long before COVID sort of got everyone scurrying around trying to fulfill that need. Have you, as a brand, seen demand for that direct, brand to home sort of interaction grow? Has it grown, or is My Way sort of still an add-on, a nice to have?
So My Way initially was to try to respond to a representation issue in central London. The cost of bricks and mortar and getting a viable dealer solution within certain inner London territory was impossible. And so we looked for a different way, and My Way was there to do that. And it was there as a pilot to test that whole concept of having dealers on the periphery, but we deliver cars and test drives through a Mazda team direct to customers, and then the sale is then passed on to the dealer. What we've done and what we learned from that was invaluable. I think invaluable going into certainly the lockdown phases when that type of solution was absolutely of paramount importance to keep the business moving for dealers. What we did is we've changed the branding of My Way to Mazda Your Way. We've got every dealer to sign up to delivering those services using the learnings of what we gained from the London project to now have what is a communicable offer or solution to our customers to promote alternative solutions and flexible solutions to them buying a car. I think through lockdown it was invaluable, like I say. I think the direct connection with brand, I'm not sure customers recognise the difference between brand and dealer. So I think if the dealer is representing the brand direct to the customer in the customer's home, that is what they need. It's not necessarily the brand that they're connecting with. It's the brand through the dealer, and that's what we want to encourage. And I think it's important. Not every customer wants that. And I think that what we're learning is just by offering those solutions, even if they're not taking up, the customer feels more valued by that dealer and becomes more of an advocate, even if they don't take up those solutions. But just the offer of them adds value to their buying experience.
Is there a argument to say that online sales would complete that journey?
Yeah.
The offer is that going to happen?
It is happening.
It is happening.
It is happening. Yeah. So we went live with an online sales platform in January. It's slightly challenged.
It sounds like a soft launch. That I didn't know about that at all.
Well, it's softer because there's not a lot of cars out there. So it's a new car stock locator, as it were.
Okay.
So you can actually find a specific car, and you can order that car through or reserve that car through an online reservation, £99 reservation, and a dealer will contact you to arrange delivery of that car. So that happens. It's not designed to be necessarily always an end-to-end solution, but it's part of an omni-channel journey. The more time we see people investing in the process online with our brand, the better quality that is a lead to the dealer, and the higher the conversion rate of those leads. Unfortunately, we were only able to put CX-30s on initially. We've added Mazda 3, and as more supply comes through, we will add those cars. We want to make sure that customers are given the option of a car that will give them a result rather than them going through a journey to see no match found. And so we're just being careful. We wanted to launch it as early as possible so we get learnings from it, so that when we go full scale with it, we can take those learnings and make it exactly what customers want.
It was very telling that it's a stock locator. I mean, at the moment, as you rightly acknowledge, there's not many brands with anything available. Yeah. So it's quite a limited offer at the moment.
It is, yeah. Just CX-30, Mazda 3. But we're looking at how we can open up to put more cars on it. We've initially designed it so that you can access a car within a 14-day window. That was the design concept and the scope
3 years ago.
Yes. When we're developing this, we're having to adjust that slightly so that it can work. But once things come back from a supply perspective, and once things come back from a supply perspective with our compound in Bristol, then I'd hope to be able to actually issue up to 8,000 cars available through that online platform, sold by your local dealer to you. And that's what's important to me for this solution, that it's not just a national stock locator and customers are travelling all over the country to find that car. I want central stock to be held for customers to be able to buy cars online from their local dealer. And I think that's important for the viability of the network going forward as well.
And the agreement with the dealers remains the same. I mean, they're still doing the legwork, so I guess the margin is the same, is it?
The margin's the same. And currently it's full RRP on the system, and we are selling cars like that because there are cars available, and that's what people are willing to pay for cars that are available now. Phases 2 and 3 will see some adjustments to that, and get dealers putting sort of margins that they wish to on the system, but it's still the contract is between them and the customer. And it's difficult also to understand, we've looked at how could we monetize things through online sales. These are strong leads past to dealers, maybe it's a handling fee. You just don't know the journey the customer's been on and how involved a dealer has been in that journey. And we want customers to be able to go and visit a dealer, but maybe start the process and end the process at home and actually make a reservation at home. To think that we can just apply a handling fee to that when the dealer's been as involved as they would have been in any sale would be very difficult for us to differentiate one to the other. So I think for now, it's a dealer managed process, full RRP, but we will look for dealers to be able to have some flexibility in that in the future.
Absolutely. And, central to all this is stock availability. I wondered, we've seen other brands bringing cars to the UK with slightly reduced spec, things perhaps missing, perhaps things that can be added further down the line. Has that been the case with Mazda? You mentioned the issues with China at the moment as well. Are cars coming in their completed spec?
We've decontented a couple of aspects, but I think the key with that is communication. We don't decontent and it's a surprise when it's delivered to dealer or to customer. And in fact, we want to ensure that residual values are reflected in it. Prices are reflected where they can be, and so we've generated actual completely new derivatives, just so that in the short term we're able to keep supply coming, and the customer's got choice then as to whether they take a car that they have got some certainty over the delivery of it without a particular element, or they choose the original spec car, which there's a little less certainty exactly when they will get that. And we're seeing the former being chosen more by customers because they want that certainty. And it's not been fundamental things about the way the car drives. It's just some of the features that may be on a car.
And that's a specific derivative. That's the crucial thing I pick up on there, because the concern is, of course, that 5 years down the line when they sold as as used cars, some of these vehicles, then who's certain what's on there? So I guess that makes that particular.
Yeah. So we, for our example on CX-5, and we've had issues with Bose amplifiers. Sport and GT Sport spec gets Bose stereo systems. So we've generated a Sport edition, which is without Bose. Everything else the same. But that's. The price is reflected, the residual value is reflected, the customer knows and has had the choice. And I think that's key, the communication to dealer, to customer, that customers are making an informed choice as to which car they go for. And it should then be reflected when it goes through auction in the future.
I'm going to segue off from the representation of your range to the representation in your dealer network, because we had a press release from you guys fairly recently about increasing diversity across the retail network. It's an issue that's constantly explored in automotive and something that's gaining more traction quite rightly with the IMI and their diversity task force, leading the way on diversity in one sense. I just wanted to explore a little bit with you guys sort of what thought process went into the fact that you were going to take a lead and try and encourage franchisees to embrace diversity and how exactly that's going to work.
Yeah. I think firstly, we're a relatively diverse workforce in terms of Mazda UK, with a decent female representation within our senior management team. And our experience of that is that it is invaluable. In terms of the discussions we have, the decisions we make, and the perspectives we bring into those discussions, we make different decisions as a result of that balance, certainly. We also see dealers that perform well have got a great balance. Their CSI scores seem to be more positive. And so we sense that there is value to the dealer business in having a better balance from a gender perspective. So we've recognised that. Laura Brayley, one of our members of the senior management team, she wanted to take this forwards, working with a couple of dealers who have got strong female representation, and they were keen to try to corral a discussion between all the women in the industry. And so Laura took the lead in terms of bringing those people together, and then we engaged with Julia Muir, who runs the 30% Club, to understand how we might be able to get some of our bigger groups recognising this, get discussion going to understand, what the business benefits are, how they could be communicated out to the wider industry, and then let the industry make the appropriate changes in order for the gender balance to be realised. Because I think the traditional way dealerships have been run has not been conducive to having huge amounts of female applicants, and certainly nurturing those applicants through to management positions. And that's what needs to happen. So we've since had, we've gone out and offered out to certain dealer groups that we would contribute to their first year subscription to the 30% Club, which we had great take up. And we then brought together those dealers, as well as those dealers that were already signed up, to have a full day workshop, put ideas out. We invited Julia to come and present some of the key messages from the 30% philosophy, and a lot of dealers took away some actions from that, and we will continue to follow that up. What we'd like to see is some of the bigger groups display how this can positively impact their business and their customer experiences, for then it to filter down to the whole industry. In fact, the dealers that we recruited, plus those dealers that are already on the 30% Club, mean that we're more than 40% of our dealers are involved. I think just over 50 dealers' sites are now signed up to the 30% Club and have got specific actions they're looking at in order to affect change to equalise that balance a bit better than it is currently.
So there's no imposition of quota from Mazda UK. It's an encouragement to engage with the 30% Club, I guess.
I think it's a recognition of us. And for me personally, some of the bosses that I've worked for that have been females have possibly been the most inspiring to me, and have meant that for me personally, they've affected more change on the way I am today than any other. And I think, like I say, that having a strong female representation of our senior management team, I know and see how we talk differently, think differently, react differently as a result of that. I see too many dealer businesses without that blend, and therefore I can only assume that some of those more informed and diverse perspectives are maybe not coming into the decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is it a surprise when you get results back from the IMI? That clearly lay bare the gap in representation. I mean, I found it quite astonishing, really.
Yeah, it is. The industry is not, like I say, been conducive to women applying for roles. Whereas if you think that we and the network is a retail industry, you look at any other forms of retail, and it's the reverse. I think it's the commodity that's been sold has always been seen as a male-dominated commodity, and I just don't think that's right. It is a retail environment that needs retail management that is consistent with the customer demographic, as well as consistent with the types of decisions that need to be made to have a profitable and successful business long term, and that certainly needs to bring in all types of considerations.
Excellent. It's certainly a big part of the mix moving forward. I'm gonna leave it there, Peter. Okay. But you've had it's been great to talk to you and get a bit of insight into Mazda UK, some of the things that you're working on and the direction you're headed. Best of luck with those supplies for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Tom.
Hope you have a successful year for you and your dealers.
Thanks very much.
Thanks ever so much.